everybody, and welcome to episode 23, wow, of All About African Violets. All About African Violets is musically sponsored by Ted Yoder. You can hear his great music on his website at tedyoder.com. It's also available from iTunes. And at the end of today's episode, this is Ted's Christmas CD. It's called Comfort and Joy, and I changed up the closing music so that you could hear one of his tunes. I think you're going to enjoy it. Well, welcome to my sunroom. Come on in. The sun's not out. It's evening. It's actually Saturday night here in Chicagoland, and I got back earlier this week from a week-long trip to Colonial Williamsburg. I had the best time. For those of you not in the U.S., Colonial Williamsburg is a revolutionary town from the American Revolution, 1776, and it's what's called a living history museum, and I love that stuff. I was at a wonderful one in Northern Ireland called the Ulster American Folk Park, and I've been to a living history place in Massachusetts called Old Sturbridge Village, and all really great. I really enjoy that. So I spent a week there, and I did the podcast a little differently last week. You may or may not have noticed. I did record it actually quite early, but I was able to figure out the workings of Blip TV and the website to get it to post for you on Sunday like normal. And that's also why I wasn't able to answer the questions you guys and the comments you guys left on the website in a very timely manner this week. So I'm sorry about that, but I'm going to talk about them now. So I do want to also, though, before we go into tips and treasures, I would like to apologize to Winston Goretzky because I misspelled his name in the credits of last week's episode. My fingers, I guess, were going a little too fast, and I must have been thinking about my vacation. So, Winston, I'm so sorry about that. And another thing is we're at 99 likes. That's where you like a page on Facebook, on our Facebook page. And I just think that's so cool. Thank you, you guys. It's just wonderful. And, last week, I'm looking at my notes. In fact, I'm just going to pick them up, and I made the type bigger so I could see them without my glasses all the time. Last week we did talk a little bit about pH. I hope that was helpful for you. You guys requested that. And we also talked about consistent care. And I really cannot stress that enough. It's really important, particularly if you are going to be growing plants for show. So to begin to get yourself on a schedule of watering and repotting, those are two really important things, and checking stuff, on a daily basis. So let's go on into tips and treasures, because we had great comments and questions again this week. Gloria asked, is there a difference between wicking and keeping plants on a reservoir? I thought Winston said he kept his plants in reservoirs, but then he later said that he had problems with wicking. I gotta put my glasses on because of the low humidity. She says, I'm a new grower and searching for the best watering techniques for me. I have noticed that the plants I am top watering seem to have healthier roots than the ones that I am wicking. But wicking is so much easier. Well, yeah, it can be a lot easier. I do a couple of different things in terms of my watering. Mainly, I use what's called a modified Texas style of potting. And actually, I took these off and now I got to put them back on. In Pauline Bartholomew's book, How to Grow African Violets, Growing to Show, she talks about the Texas style method of potting, and she says the Texas style potting and watering method was developed in Texas, that's why they call it Texas style, in the late 1970s. Texas style consists basically of a shallow layer of coarse, pebbly, inert material, such as perlite, and a shallow layer of potting mix. The plants are watered from the bottom with a dilute fertilizer solution. and a series of 1/4-inch holes are punched around the tub pot at the juncture of the perlite and the soil mix layers. The holes may be spaced from 1 inch apart on 4-inch pots up to 1.5 inch apart on larger pots. The depth depends on the size of the pot. The holes should be large enough so that tools such as ice picks or nut picks may be inserted into them. Now this is interesting, and I actually had forgotten this. The holes are not to provide aeration to the root system. Sufficient aeration is supplied through the exposed surface of the soil and the shallow layer of perlite and air entering from the holes in the bottom of the pot. Texas style will work without the additional holes, and that's the modified Texas style without the holes. Which says, but they do serve several purposes. It can identify the depth of the perlite for potting up purposes. The depth of the perlite will be evident when adding water to the saucers, and a tool can be pushed through the holes to lift up the root ball and loosen it from the pot. And she's got a good picture here that shows you what that looks like. And I grabbed one of my pots. Can you see it? These are small, actually, probably too small. I made them with my Sharpie. So if they're supposed to be about 1/4 inch, they'd probably need to be about that big, the holes. And this is almost 1 inch from the bottom of the pot. And this is a bag of coarse perlite. I get my coarse perlite from Bluebird Greenhouses in North Carolina, but it's available, there are plenty of places you can get it. I just happen to get it there because it's easy to order it. I can order a case at a time, and it comes in these great bags. Well, this is very, very, very thick, coarse perlite. So a layer of that would go in the bottom of the pot. But before you would do that, you would put a wick in the pot. So we've been talking about wicking material. These are, this is the Mason's twine I showed you last week. And this is the same one, just out of the package. And this is the next thicker size, this one. And I don't know if you can see that this is a narrower diameter and this is thicker. It's hard for me to tell on the monitor that I'm looking at. But you would cut a wick that you would put then, I won't cut this, I'll just show it to you. You would have the wick that would go through the bottom of the pot, and I think I've demonstrated this to you before. So it's there, and then it would come, then you would put the perlite in the pot, and then you would put your soil on top of that, and the wick would be touching the soil, and it will draw water up into the pot. I use a modified Texas style with a wick. Now, I don't community water my plants, Gloria, so wicking, a lot of people who wick, they will then put the plant, on matting in a tray with all the other plants. I really only community water occasionally, like when I was on vacation. I have the Chinese takeout containers, and I can put multiple plants, small plants, on those. I will do that when they're young in that way, and just for a limited period of time. But normally each one of my plants is in its own individual saucer, and that wick is there just to help draw the water up. I usually water from the bottom, and it'll draw the water up into the potting mix and into where the roots can get at it. I do occasionally, though, water from the top. I particularly water from the top when I have just potted up some babies, because their root system is not as well established. Like if I've separated them from a mama leaf and then potted it up, their root system isn't quite as well established. And so I find, or I think that I find, that I like to water from the top initially for a little while, just to make sure that everybody's getting, everything's happening that needs to happen, and the roots are getting the nutrients and things that they need from the water and the fertilizer. So, I don't think that one system is better than another. I think it's important that maybe you try a couple of things. For me, the reason that I water individually, there are a couple of reasons. I'm looking for some wood to knock on, maybe my head. I've been very lucky in that I've not had a lot of trouble with pests or problems with my plants. A lot of that is because I generally isolate really well. I mean, of course, other than, the mass exodus I had to have earlier this year where everything went out. But if there's a pest in a plant and you have it in a community tray, it's very easy for that pest or problem to spread very quickly to every plant in that tray, because it can, it's carried right through that matting from plant to plant to plant. And when I was a new grower, I felt that I wanted to have my plants on individual saucers to, kind of eliminate that problem, because if one plant has something, it can't really, crawl over the thing and then crawl down through the egg crate that's on my stand and then crawl back up. It's just not going to happen that way. So I do it for that reason, but I also do it individually water because it allows me to get FaceTime with every one of my plants on a very regular basis. And that is really important for the plants and for me to be able to see what's going on, to definitely take a look. Does this plant need a turn? Does it need to be disbudded? What's happening here? So that's the other reason that I do it. I sometimes like to put my plants on reservoirs, and that's the other reason that I always use a wick, because if I do travel, that wick is already there and I can put the plant on a reservoir. The wick will be in the water and it will draw up to the plant and keep it watered while I'm away. And I have to say, it's been cool here in Chicagoland, and I was gone for a week. I really did not think that the reservoirs would dry out in that period of time, because I keep my house, I don't turn the heat way down in the winter when I leave because I have plants, but they sucked up the water. So everybody had to be watered as soon as I got home. I will occasionally, when I'm getting ready for show, if I feel like a plant really needs to have constant water, I will put it on a reservoir, because plants, in my experience, often will grow larger on a reservoir because they have a constant supply of water. But I like to check them every day. I like to look at them. That's part of the joy that I have, that I get from growing them. So I hope that answers your question, Gloria. But, and there's a lot of questions today about wicking and oops, I got the wick caught on my glasses. Because Kitty Bo also said, I'm toying with the idea of using the Texas-style watering system for the numerous baby plants. I'll be setting the plants I want to keep up in little oyamas and maybe using the Texas system with the others. And then she says, will you be entering in the national show? Yes, I hope to be entering plants at national. Kitty, we'll see. Cross my fingers. We'll see how it goes. I think it'd be fine to try both methods. Try it and see what you like. What suits you, what suits your personal schedule, what your plants seem to like. You won't know unless you experiment. And both, Texas style is a great system. Modified Texas style works really well for me. Other people mat water, and that works great for them. So there are a lot of ways to go and a lot of choices. So I think, definitely try them out and see. And Steve Kerr left me a great message. Thank you, Steve, on the website. I think maybe, Steve, you have to become my new producer of the podcast, because he's got this great idea for an episode, and he wrote it out. If you didn't see it, he says, I'll read you part of it. He says, I want to echo the questions above and would say that I have been thinking about wicking violets myself in order to reduce the time needed for care. And that's another good point, because if you have a tremendous number of plants, wicking and putting them on mats and community trays, that is going to save a whole lot of time for you in terms of your watering. There's no question about that. So that's another consideration. And he says, in order to reduce the time needed for care and to aid in maintaining consistent care. Again, very good point. And then he says, perhaps an episode devoted to how to wick is in order. You have many plantlets to pot up soon. Yes, Steve, I do. Oh my goodness. And what if you devoted an episode to the steps involved with that? Mixing the soil, showing the components, setting up a wick and reservoir, dividing and choosing the best plantlets to help limit that collection. You could also do a side-by-side comparison of a wicked versus not wicked plantlet of the same variety, something that could add an element to what's on the stands for the next several months. Really great ideas. Thank you, Steve. And then he also said, he left a very funny comment and said that he knew that if he called Planting by the Phases of the Moon snake oil, that I would talk about it sooner. And he was right. I did. So I will. I had actually hoped to give you guys to have some footage of showing you how to separate plantlets and how to do that for this week. But it just, with traveling and getting back into town and then getting back to work, it just was not possible this week. But very soon, because as I say every week, I have work to do down in the basement with all those plantlets, and also with the Box of Joy. There's a lot of stuff going on. Well, that takes us to what's on the stands. Thanks, you guys, for those great questions. It really helps when you ask stuff like that, or when you tell me what it is you really want to know about, and I'll do my best to try to get you the information as quickly as I can. Sometimes it's not as quickly, I know, as you might like, but it'll be soon. Hopefully next week, okay? So what's on the stands? It's time to take a look. Wait until you see the Smithiantha. I'll be right back. Hi, you guys. I'm here in my guest room, and this is the Box of Joy. Take a look. I wanted to give you a really good look at it this week. There are some of the leaves that haven't sprouted yet, but there are others, like that one, coming. Some that are looking just great. Some actual plantlets that are really growing well. And things that will be ready for me to separate them. There's Fisherman's Paradise, looking fabulous. I wanted you to have a good look this week because everything's looking so great. So, here are the three little Optimaras that I have. This is a little Inca Girl, and it is looking really quite nice. It's got a very wonky leaf that just kind of grew sideways. This needs to be repotted. These are the plants that were repotted in July. So it's December. It's about time. It's actually past time for a semi. So I'll have lots to be able to share with you. And this is Optimara Little Creek Girl. And it finally bloomed. It looked, as you may recall, I thought that it looked like it was going to be blooming. True, it looked like the top two petals were darker as it was first blooming, right as they were opening up. And in truth, on this one, the top two do look darker, but it's not all the way open yet. But unfortunately, Here's what the actual description of this plant says. A single pink, two-tone, stick tight. That means that plant, the blossom sticks tight, it doesn't drop off. Darker top petals, medium green, plain, pointed, hairy, glossy leaves. And the leaves look good, but I am really not feeling like this is blooming true, because these petals don't, I'm very conflicted. They do look a little darker right up at the tips, as you can see, and maybe that's what they meant by that. I'm not sure. I'm going to give it some more time. And then this is Little Comanche Girl, and it needs a little assistance there in the center. It's trying to bloom. It also, I knocked it over. It also needs to be repotted. Whole row of leaves needs to come off. It needs to be disbudded. It's trying to bloom again. So again, work cut out for me. And here is the box of joy from the back side. I just really wanted to give you guys a really good look at it this week. Let's head down to the basement. Oh, wait a minute. We can't go to the basement yet. Whoop. Here is Rob's Antique Rose. It's coming in beautifully. As you can see, I took some leaves off of it, so it's got a funny shape right now. So this leaf will go and this leaf will go. But it's really starting to grow really well. Nothing is marred any longer. I think it's going to be a beautiful plant. Here's Western Moon, looking great. Here's Pink Pussycat. And there is Blueberry Sprite. Now let's go to the basement. Here's my little Apecia. And it seems okay. It needs to be repotted. Now, you guys, I can't... Look! This is the Smithiantha plants. And I want to... Can you see the inside of the blossom? It's yellow with spots. There, that one's pretty good. You can kind of see that one. Isn't it beautiful? And actually, I think I'm supposed to keep these in the dome. Bill Price said that I should. And actually, Elsie left me some great videos to take a look at. And unfortunately, I haven't had an opportunity to do that yet, but I will. Because I have no real knowledge of these. Although I'm not so sure that these are really the true species Cinnabarina, because the new leaves are not the deep cinnamon color. I mean, there's a couple that sort of are looking like it. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to get some expert advice on this. But I just wanted you to see, this blossom is how they looked last week before I left. And all of these opened up while I was away. I'm going to turn this again so that you can see them again. Yeah, I can pick this up and move it out a little bit. There. Oh, look at it. Isn't it beautiful? It's really exciting. So new, something different. Let's go take a look at the other stand. Guys, these are the plantlets that I potted up a while ago, and they are now all off that reservoir. So you can see that after a week of being on the reservoir, most of them look substantially larger than they did last week. Everybody's looking pretty good here. Now, down here are the trailers. This is Sushi. It's got another blossom, and I don't really want it to be blooming right now, so whoop, there we go. And this plant is now blooming. This is the plant that I had labeled as Cherokee Trail. But I gotta tell you, I've grown Cherokee Trail in the past, and this does not look like it. The actual description of Cherokee Trail is a double pink, which these are full double blossoms. It's a double pink with a white edge. You guys, there's no white edge anywhere here. And the plant is variegated white and green with pointed leaves. It is a standard trailer. And although these leaves, I think, could maybe be considered pointed, they're not really. this is definitely crown variegation, and that's not what Cherokee Trail is. So I think that somehow I got a plant that was mislabeled. I have no idea what it is, so I won't likely be keeping it because I can't show it. And look, here's little Pixie Blue in bloom, looking great, blooming true. Let's take a look at both of the dome trays. Welcome to the jungle, baby. Yes, Steve, I know. I've got to pot these and split them up. Or not in that order. Split them up and then pot them. And here is the other tray from the back. Get in there so you guys can take. This tray's looking kind of gross, isn't it? Time to clean it up. But everybody in here is looking pretty good. Okay, we'll go upstairs. Okay, I'm kind of out of breath from coming up the steps. Here are my calumnias. There's Roulette. There's the Escananthus. The two straps. The strap is getting ready to bloom. We'll take a look at it, and here is my Petrocosmia carrii, and it does look pretty good. The center leaves look good, but the outer leaves do not. And I don't really know what that means. If anybody is growing this Petrocosmia or has experience with it and can help me out, I would certainly appreciate it. I'm not sure if there's just this is their life cycle and they're done and I'm supposed to take them off, or if it wasn't happy on the reservoir, although it seemed happy. I don't know, but it sure looks cool. The new growth looks great. And here are my other 4 plantlets that still all need repotting. Yikes, into my own mix. Let's go take a quick look at the big box violet. Well, here she is, and you'll see that I did eventually remove her 2 blossom stalks. She's getting almost too big. She's hitting the sides of the conservatory stand that she's in here. I think I'm gonna have to take her out of here because, sorry, I mean, literally she's up against the wall, so to speak, but looking good and still happy in this pot. So that's the look at what's on the stands this week. I'll be right back. I hope you enjoyed seeing everything, especially that Smithiantha. Isn't it beautiful? I just think it's great. I'm not sure that it's the true species because I was told that the new growth would be the deep cinnamon color, and there's still a lot of green that I'm seeing there, so I'm not sure, but it still is really pretty. So, and everything else really looking pretty good, but you know, as I say lately every week, my work is cut out for me, and I do, as I mentioned, hope to get that taken care of. And I meant to mention that for those of you who missed my green shirt, I'm wearing it for you today. Because it is the weekend and I am, you know, relaxing. I had a really great day today. And you know, it's time to get the bail money ready. Except there isn't any place to go. But I got the bail money ready for fiber this last week. You know, like I said, I had a great vacation and I didn't knit at all, which is very rare for me. But I read 3 books. And I saw all of this great stuff in Williamsburg, and I really had a good time. And one of the things they have there in Williamsburg is a rare breed program for horses and sheep and chickens. And the sheep that they have are British, well, they came from Britain, sheep. They're called Leicester long wool sheep. And a long wool is a wool that you don't want to really have next to your skin. It's itchy. This is some yarn that I bought there, little Christmas colors. This is the Leicester long wool yarn that has been spun and I think professionally dyed, but made from the yarn of their sheep. But what I really, this is really for those of you who are watching who are spinners. This is what I got with something else that I bought. And it talks about them. It says Leicester long wools were developed in the mid-18th century by Robert Bakewell of Leicester, England. The breed became popular throughout the British Empire. George Washington purchased Leicester long wools for his flock at Mount Vernon. The Leicester long wool is now a rare breed of farm animal, and Colonial Williamsburg's original Leicester sheep were imported from Tasmania in 1990. By raising this breed, Colonial Williamsburg preserves one of the foundation breeds of the 18th century and keeps a unique gene pool alive for future generations. Well, I think that's so cool. And as a spinner, I love to try different wools and spin different fiber preparations. So I was very lucky. This is a very large bump of fiber. This is 8 ounces of roving of Leicester long wool that I'm going to play with and spin and see what it's like to work with it and to work with a rare breed fiber like this. And I'm kind of excited about it. So we'll see how that goes, and eventually I'll be spinning that up and I'll be able to show it to you. Well, it's time to keep moving forward. And it's that time of year. It's Christmas time, the holiday season. It's upon us. And this is a time when things get so busy. And so I really want to encourage you all to make sure that you do take time for yourself and for your plants during this busy and joyful time. It is the season of hope and joy. So I really want to thank you all for watching. All About African Violets is, available weekly. It's a weekly video podcast. You can always watch it on the website, allaboutafricanviolets.com. It's also available. You can subscribe there on an RSS feed if that's how you like to get your info. You can also subscribe on Blip TV, and you can also subscribe on iTunes and download it directly from iTunes every week. So thank you for watching. Thank you for coming back week after week. I'm very grateful for all of you. So I hope that you have a wonderful week. I hope your days are filled with all the things you love, and I hope that they will be merry and bright. Good growing. I'll see you next week.